And we're live. Hi, Peter. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna try to jump on my lap right now? Because that would not be conducive to anything I've got going on. So yeah, thanks. That's great. That's great. Um. So anyway, here we are. We got. Hey, Kevin. Um, Kevin, I picked out a couple choices for the trade for that for this right here, actually, and I will send you some things for your approval. Craig, hello. How are you? So it is actually showtime right now, and I normally get on a little early, but I didn't. So what I have. So here's what we're gonna do. I have gotten emails from. I get a lot of emails from people that I routinely try. I try to answer all of them. I do. I also got a really cool new knife today. It's the Civivi Cogent in Damascus and green micarta. It's phenomenal. And I'm sorry, I'm on the built-in webcam because I can't find the good one. I used it to Zoom with my mom and my brothers and my grandma, and I don't know where I put it because I have a computer. Anyway, I've been getting a lot of questions about my opinions, not politically but military wise, about the shenanigans with Russia and Ukraine. And I thought it might be an interesting topic to talk about as a group live. We can still talk about other stuff, but that's kind of what I figured we'd talk about. And those of you who have questions, Craig, thank you. This is useful because we have another giveaway coming up and then another one. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. So I figured we could talk about that from a military standpoint, from a technical, not a politics, because you know what? The truth is, once the decision is made, the politics don't matter. Once young lives are set in motion and in harm's way, that's what it's about. And so no, I'm glad, Kurt. We had a 2-day heat wave of the 50s, so I'm glad. But of course, it's going to drop below freezing again. So all of the rain that we have and all the melted snow is going to freeze up everywhere. So anyway, if you guys want to talk to me as literally, I can honestly say, and I always tell you guys, like, I'm not an expert in this or not. I am an expert in weapon systems. That's what I'm in. That is what the military paid for me to do. And I know force on force, what that stuff is about. If you want to ask questions on that, if we want to talk about that and my opinions on that, that's what I figured we'd do. And I'm also going to tell you some channel stuff and some updates. The custom work I've been doing on this Contigo, I found the handle material I want to use, and I think it's going to be epic. Oh man, M4. See, uncoated M4. Look, I'm already starting to get some corrosion there. M4 is a great steel, but it is a very high carbon, corrosion prone steel. So I should probably take a clear Cerakote to this. Get rid of that, scrub off that corrosion there that's already starting to form, and clear Cerakote this. But I think the handle materials, one of them is going to be one of them is going to be a carbon fiber type, and the other one is going to be one I don't think most people have ever seen before. I've never seen it before. It's going to be great. So I can't wait. That's going to be really cool. Peter, yes, thank you as always. Thank you for this. I appreciate it. Shipping for the giveaway we have going right now, and another one coming up. Always projects. You guys are going to see the result of a refurbishment project really soon. Hang on, I'm going to read this from my man in Mexico City. Sorry, that was my ringtone. Or yeah, interesting. Yeah. But so anyway, I just filmed a whole review on this folding kitchen knife that I think some of you might like. So Dominic, the M4 Freak is coded. Benchmade sends their M4 and their D2 out with a Cerakote on it, if you didn't know that. The original Contigo that I took, it has either a clear Cerakote on the one that looks. You're going to get a meat stick unboxing, JR. We just filmed one, but so it's either Cerakoted in black or Cerakoted in clear if you have the gray one. That's why their other M4 blades don't corrode. They come coated. I took all that off when I worked on this one, which is why now you're starting to see the corrosion fairly quickly. So anyway, anything else? Not to show you right now. Not really, but we still do have the giveaway for the not a 940 going. We've got a lot of entries into that, so I'm really excited for that to go. We'll get this done, over the weekend. Anyway, so let's get to Russia. Has if you're not following the news, Russia has actually sent troops into eastern Ukraine, into areas that are held by the rebels, separatists, whatever you want to call it, that they're backing anyway. So not Ukrainian territory held by Ukrainian government troops. U.S. intelligence says that it's within 48 hours, expect more. I don't know. I have now in my 21 years of military service, I don't know how to explain it. This is the first time I am nervous over where something could really go in the long term. Without breaking any classified stuff. So here's counters. So counters is a complicated question. We have some tactics that we can employ. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed, but we have some things we can use. I will tell you that in a red flag exercise I was at against and in red flag and in weapons school, these are complicated air warfare scenarios where the bad guys are full up. We don't play this game where we just want to congratulate ourselves for being awesome. We want the good guys, the blue air, to lose. Well, I mean, we do, so that we develop new tactics that are better, So the opposing force, the red air, when we replicate enemy systems out there at Nellis, we do it for real. And we have we have information that the bad guys don't even know we have. And that's all I can say. So yeah, no, Phil, that's absolutely right. The Russians' nuclear arsenal has been aimed at the United States since the Cold War, and they still are. So anyway, Craig, to get back to what I was saying, in one of our sorties in this red flag exercise, which was fairly recent, we had what we call a compass attack, where we had bombers from all around shooting cruise missiles with decoys. And this is the unclassified version. Yeah, that whole standard scenario that we had planned for, we basically wasted, hundreds of $1 billion worth of cruise missiles, because by the time the fighters got there, we also lost a lot of airplanes. The mission was successful in so much as we hit the targets we were trying to hit, but bloody losses. And that's my overall take. I was just told they were aimed at us recently. Phil, no, the Russian nukes have been aimed at us. Where else are they going to aim them? I mean, they've been aimed. See, the thing is, okay, so nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles are not aimed any. You have to program in a target package, and most of them have what we call multiple independently targeted reentry vehicles. Okay, so hello Ryan, how are you? So what happens is it's not one missile that goes to one place. It's one missile with between 3 and 10 warheads, and depending on how they separate, Dominic, I actually have the laptop plugged in. Depending on a number of factors, those warheads can actually, once they separate from the reentry vehicle, can spread out by hundreds of miles. So it's not so much like a missile is aimed at any one point. A missile, an ICBM, an SS, 19 or 20, can actually be targeting up to 5 or 10 cities. What happens is there's a targeting package that is programmed in, and that, just like your computer that's programmed to do something, it's programmed like that until you A, erase it, or B, program it to do something else. And same thing with our missiles. You can't. But the thing is, you can't have a missile that's programmed to go nowhere. Like it doesn't work like one of those. You sound like one of those stolen valor guys. The way you mentioned something is classified. Okay, Johnny. Sounds fine. Whatever. Okay. Some things are classified. Some things are not. I don't know. Lots of things are classified. Lots of things are unclassified. Some things are classified is a very broad term. Classified just means information has been classified to different levels. Did you know that unclassified is still a classification level? Like every piece of information is classified, from unclassified to for official use only, to confidential, to secret, top secret SCI, special access programs. I mean, there's whatever. I've been on this channel in my uniform before. I've been on this channel deployed. You sound like one of those dudes that's got a giant boner for like calling out stolen valor, even when you make the mistake and the guy's actually in the military. Anyway. Craig, some MIRVs are guided, and some just follow the reentry kind of arc. Most have a guidance system. Most of the modern ones have a guidance system. A lot of them have a way to guidance, a way to guide to a target, and that's the whole point of having them on board, so that it makes it a more threatening system. But anyway, my point is that you don't have a missile that's just sitting in a silo without a targeting package programmed in, because there are some weapons that can be targeted very quickly. ICBMs by nature are not that, because of the computations and the calculations and the distance they travel and all sorts of stuff, from shooting literally around the world. It's a complicated process. So the easiest thing to do is just leave the previous targeting in there. And if a problem comes up, you can retarget them somewhere else, but it takes a while. Now, an air-launched cruise missile doesn't have nearly as far to go, or it may have as far to go, but it can be aided by things like GPS and a moving map comparison, and things like the ALCOM, the AGM-86. It has other aids that an ICBM won't have, so it can be retargeted very quickly based on things like that. It's just a whole different thing. Anyway, I wonder if the computer system in those missiles have been updated since the 80s. Todd, they have been updated since the 80s, but you got to remember the system they were using in the 80s was probably designed in the 60s. So the upgrade that they've got since the 80s is still probably 2 generations behind. So like when we were deployed, I'm going to try to find a picture real quick that I can show you. TYQ 23. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm going to show you guys this picture. There's one, and there's one. If it comes up, come on, come up, picture. Well, this is a very small picture, and that's not helping me. Bear with me a second, guys. Here we go. Let me share my screen. Do you follow Kent Survival? Look at the ones. Hey, King K, how are you doing? Let me share the screen. Extra camera view video file. Okay, I'm sorry for the crappiness of this picture, but so when we used to deploy, are you guys seeing this? Yeah, you are. Okay, so this is a small picture, but when we used to deploy out, so there's a couple different ways that we could do our job. One of them is with this little, see these boxes? These are standard shipping container size boxes. And so inside this is everything you need to direct aircraft and control an air war, right? And these are UHF antennas on top. We have an HF antenna and a VHF antenna and all this stuff. And so now I'm going to get a different screen to show you. And this is all in terms of the technology stuff. I got to try to find the internal. Yeah. But this is also pretty. So you see, if you see on the interior here, this is, and we were using this in like the 2010s in Iraq. In Afghanistan, we had a fancier setup. If you were not in the field, if you're in the field, you have nothing. You have a grease board and your rifle and stuff like that. But yeah. But inside this is like the finest 1970s technology money can buy. And so when you talk about upgrading technology in the military, it's very often not a case of like, oh, we're going to upgrade it, it's going to be brand new. So when you upgrade the stuff that's inside this little box, it's still an upgrade. But I mean, this is a Unix environment. And then we upgraded to like Windows 95, and that was huge. We were like, wow, what a difference. Awesome. That was in 2007. And that, I mean, that was the system, because the development had been in the works for that long. But that's how the government does it. You have to, the contract process and the development and testing process is absolutely, utterly fucking ridiculous. And so, but the thing is, those boxes, you could airdrop one of those boxes out of a C-130 and then drop a crew, and we can our units, Control and Reporting Center, are set up to defend ourselves, provide our own power, our own uplinks. We step out to operate for 90 days with no support on the front edge, on the front lines, right behind where the battle's going on, calling in close air support and, arranging fighter intercepts and, tankers and all that stuff. So it's got to be able to drop out of that airplane if need be. It's got to be able to withstand, some mortar fragments. It's got to be able to, it takes a lot. And Craig, this is a good point. We know for a fact that the F-117 was up and flying from the 70s until they actually released it to the public. The first pictures came out kind of a year or two before Panama, and then it saw combat for the first time in Panama in '89. And there is some cool stuff. What's up, Mr. Ethan? Hi. There is some cool stuff that we have. Now, getting back to this Russia-Ukraine situation, I have said for a long time, and I have knowing what Russia has to bring to bear, Russia today is not the Russia of the Soviet Union, when we compare. They don't have the almost endless supply of manpower and equipment. And because of that, Russia has really increased Russia has really increased the technology that they put into their equipment. So a Su-27 flanker that we would have faced under the Soviet era is not at all the war machine that a Su-35 super flanker is today. It might look the same. You just look at two of them on the runway next to each other. You probably couldn't tell the difference, guys. I mean, you couldn't. But except for paint job and maybe some differences, here and there. Now, the Su-35 is not a match in any way, shape, or form, especially when you consider Can you not do that right next to my face? Thank you. When you consider, the training of their pilots versus our pilots and experience and all that stuff, it's not a match for an F-22. It's near peer, what we call near peer for an F-15 or an F-16. We still have an edge in different things. And again, I'm sorry that Mr. Thunder fucker doesn't like when I say things like this, but there are classified levels of technology that go into it that we can't talk about here. We have systems, we have technology that lets us strike first, strike hard, all that stuff. Like we can overcome a flanker. I would never want to be flying an F-16 or an Eagle and get in a turning fight with a flanker. No way. But we have the means, and not just through the aircraft itself, but through those individual aircrafts. But I mean, we have this entire through our air ops, the Constellation. We have the rivet joint. We have the AWACS. We have the CRC on the ground. We have we have all these elements in this chain of command and control that no other nation has, so that we can put eyes on a target, identify a target, track and lock a target, and kill that target before anybody else can. And that's really what it comes down to. Hey, Dave, how are you doing? Now, Angry, when you're talking about this, the good thing about this is that can only apply to the battlefield over there. That's it. I mean, at least that can't spread anywhere else. Craig, there are always times where, like, again, red flag and at Nellis, we have F-16 red air aggressors that frequently get kills on Raptors. Usually has to do with the Raptor pilot forgetting that he's not invisible. And a lot of people think that they use the word stealth, when in the professional circles, we never use the term stealth. We use the term low observable, because stealth is kind of synonymous with invisibility, and there is no such thing as an invisible plane. Even the F-22, in the right aspect, in the right situation, will show up on radar. Okay, hold on. And let's not forget, the F-22 is a relatively large fighter plane. Okay, yeah, Craig, and I'm going to explain to you how they get these kills. The F-22 is a big fighter plane, bigger than an F-16, and it's a dark gray plane. And a dark gray plane in a light blue sky or against a white cloud stands out very much. And the gold kind of tinted canopy, it's got a layer of actual gold, like for electronic reasons. The sun loves to glint bright and shiny off that. And anytime, and when we go to a debrief, there's an engagement, whether the Raptor is shot down or the Raptor kills someone else. They have to ask the Red Air pilot, did you have any detects? And they have to, against the Raptor. And what they're asking is, did you have any SA that the Raptor was there? And if you did, what is the detect? How did you know? And very often when the Raptor is killed and they ask, like, what is the detect? It's more often than not, it's a visual sighting of the Raptor. It's glint off the canopy, or saw it in plan form, or got a momentary radar hit while it was in the turn, or something like that. And this is not super secret squirrel stuff. The F-117 would give a lot of radar reflections off the big flat bottom of the plane when it was in a turn. And Raptor pilots spend a lot of time during the intercept positioning their aircraft to make sure that it's always in the right position, so that they call signature management. It's positioning, it's what electronic signals are coming off the plane, all sorts of stuff. So 4th generation aircraft can kill a Raptor. And there may or may not have been some incidents in Syria where Raptors had been completely unknowingly to the pilots of those Raptors trailed by a Russian aircraft time or again. For reasons that they are not invisible in the sky. And a super flanker is an incredibly maneuverable aircraft. And once you get into the visual, and the F-22 cannot carry our best air-to-air dogfighting missile for reasons of sheer stupidity that I'm not going to get into right now. The AIM-9X is an amazing missile that can, with the helmet-mounted sight, or joint helmet-mounted cueing system, pilot can look over his shoulder, designate a target for that heat-seeking missile. The missile seeker head can rotate, look at it, lock it, and he can press the button and shoot at a plane that's like, kind of over his shoulder a little bit. Raptors can't do that for reasons of sheer stupidity that I'm not going to get into right now. Flanker pilots have a similar system that's not nearly as good as ours, but in a dogfight, they have a missile that can sort of kind of do that, not to the same extent. So anyway, I'm not going to name aircraft because some of the aircraft that they encountered in Syria that should not have been able to hang with it, we're like, what? But I'll tell you right now, the Su-34, while it's used primarily as a bomber, has an excellent radar. It's based on the flanker. It's incredibly maneuverable. And it can do some stuff. The super flanker with a well-trained pilot can do some stuff. The AMRAAM is still pretty good, yeah. And the most capable latest version of the AMRAAM is not the longest ranged missile in the world, but we have ways to deal with longer ranged missiles. We have tactics, and the AMRAAM has a feature that other So the AMRAAM, guys, if you're not familiar, is an active radar missile, which means it has its own little tiny radar, so that after a certain point, the airplane that's flying, Raptor, F-16, F-15, F-18, whatever, its radar in the plane designates a target, and it talks to the missile, and it says, "This is the target I want you to go after," and it actually says, "Listen, the target is going this way at this speed, at this direction, all this. So I want you to aim it like leading, like when you're shooting a gun. You lead. It says, I want you to aim a little bit this way off here. Go. And I'm going to update you as you go." And it is now communicating by data link. After a little bit, the computer of telling it, "Okay, now shift over here, now shift over here." It says, "All right, I want you to open up your big old eye, and I want you to look for the target yourself." And it opens up its big old eye, and it is now in what we call medium PRF mode. High PRF mode. High PRF mode means the radar is sending a whole lot of signals, but in a small little area, just looking for that target, and sending a lot of signals out so it can find it quickly and lock on. And with high PRF, you can lock on very well. Okay. Once it has locked onto that target on its own, it says, "I found my target." It talks to the radar in the airplane, and the airplane says, "Yeah, that's what I want you to lock onto." It then switches to medium PRF mode, which means instead of looking through that narrow little lens looking for its target, it opens up its eye and locks on. And now it's not sending as many pulses per second, but it can see if that target maneuvers around because it's got a wider look. So it can follow that target a little bit better. It is one of the only active radar missiles in the world that can go from HPRF to MPRF to medium PRF. All of the opposing forces, and you can look this all up online, by the way, all of the opposing forces active radar missiles have HPRF mode only. So there is a much better chance that if you are able to pull the correct maneuver, the missile just honestly loses sight of you. You're no longer within that little cone of where it can see, and it can't keep lock. It just can't. And that's why the AMRAAM is one of the best missiles. So not the longest range, not the fastest, but it has the capability to track its target better than anybody else out there. And so we execute with tactics to mitigate that range. And we execute with different tactics that also mitigate any range advantage anybody else has. And basically, the AMRAAM is not there is no 100% PK probability of kill missile. We can say the only thing in the world that has a PK of 100% is the ground. But if there's a much better than average chance that if you can support your missile all the way to medium PRF, you're gonna get that kill. We have these different code words we use. If you hear a pilot call Pitbull on the radio, that means he has supported that missile all the way to medium PRF. He can now turn away and go wherever he wants, and that missile is going to guide itself. If he calls Mad Dog, is it Mad Dog? It's been a while. No, it's not Mad Dog. Mad Dog is something else. Well, I can't remember what it is. It's been a while, guys. But anyway, there are all these radio cues, so we know what the status of that missile is and what the potential is for the need to re-engage on that target. And we can then talk to the pilot when he's flying away. He has no eyes on where it is, and we can direct him on exactly where to turn, how the turn should be, what the range is, and how to get that shot. And that's something that we can do if we're in one of those little camouflage boxes with a radar feed. If we're out in the field doing dedicated, like direct close air support for ground, we can't do that stuff. This career field is really the career field that I'm in existed. It started back in the days of the Cold War when we were really thought that it was all about directing intercepts. It actually originated being called ground controlled intercept, where it was all about vectoring fighters towards huge formations of Russian bombers. And it has evolved incredibly fast. And we literally rewrote the book on it, starting with Desert Storm. And, really, we turned to an air, to an air to ground career field with the start of this war because we needed to. We had to. Anyway, so back to the main topic. If there were to be an actual shooting war between Russia and Ukraine, not the Ukraine. It's not the Ukraine, it's just Ukraine. Russia has an advantage. They have, comparatively between those two countries, they have a great edge in manpower and technology. Ukraine is armed with the best stuff Russia had 10, 20 years ago. Now, if NATO does get involved, Germany, and I'm not saying that's going to happen because some countries like Germany, Todd, those boxes are command and control elements. They are not flight controls. We don't control any aircraft from there. We can't actually, with an old data link system called Link 4, we can actually remote fly certain Navy aircraft. Not that we ever would. But we can we can do some stuff. We can, using Link 16, we can, when I say control, okay, what I mean is that pilot, see, a lot of people think, and that pilot is in control of his airplane. They are flying the airplane, but they are under the direction of someone in the air or on the ground. The time where that pilot is completely on their own is when they go to the merge, or what most people call dogfight. And that lasts brief seconds to minutes, and that's it. Just about every other step, flight control, yes, it is a flight control system, yeah. Every other step of that mission, they are basically talked through and directed by someone else. And believe it or not, compared to the battlefield outside, pilots have a small degree of situational awareness of what's going on inside and immediately outside their cockpit. They are given directions on where to go, how to go there, what altitude they can fly at. Even the best fighter radars. And when we say things like they can see, 80, 90, 100 nautical miles in front of them, that sounds fancy. But when you're talking about a battlefield, like a campaign wide, that's nothing. So they need precise direction and control. And once and you got to also remember, pilots they have so much information in their face in the cockpit coming at them, they very quickly lose sight of everything else going on. So it is up to weapons directors and controllers to basically tell them what they're doing and where they're going, what their targets are, what their targets are not, where they are. Sometimes it's more important to know what you are not allowed to shoot at than what you are, because the absolute worst case scenario is we kill some civilians. We would rather, honestly, we wouldn't want to, but if we have to, we would rather shoot down a friendly airplane than accidentally shoot down an airliner, So the command and control system, and what we do as whether we're on the ground, doing air to ground work or close air support, or we are, controlling intercepts and air to air combat, we are that pilot's eyes and ears for everything outside their immediate, what they're looking at, especially once they've started an intercept. Like in air to air combat, we will commit them on a target and we will give them all the information on a target. They are not allowed to drop a bomb or fire a missile until we declare that target hostile, because we can combine different sources of intel, of electronic information. We can see, we can just see a thing of like, well, I know because I can incorporate intel. I can talk to a dude from Intel who says that aircraft took off from an enemy airbase. That pilot can't see that, doesn't know that. And I can say, all right, so I'm starting with that guy is unknown. He's not one of ours. I have intel saying he took off from an enemy airbase, and I can get a report that he is not broadcasting any of the special codes that would identify it as one of ours. Okay, you can kill him. He's a bad guy, hostile. The pilots are always, always, always allowed to act in self-defense. We will never tell a pilot you cannot fire when fired upon, or if somebody executes a hostile move. Theoretically, technically, locking somebody up on radar is an act of war. We do it all the time as a warning. Once you're in hostilities, though, the mere act of locking somebody up on radar implies you're going to shoot them. And if one of our, in Operation, in Iraqi Freedom or Desert Storm, if somebody locked you up on radar, you have full right to hit the pickle button right away and just shoot an AMRAAM. Well, in Desert Storm, it was a Sidewinder or a Sparrow. But I mean, that is it. That is what we call a hostile act. There are things called hostile acts and hostile intentions. A maneuver or a move to get in a firing position might be a hostile intention. A hostile act is firing, is locking somebody on a radar, is things like that. So, I mean, and everything's spelled out in the rules of engagement. And on the ground, it's the same thing. Our ground troops, may not, if hostilities are declared and we are in open war, sure, shoot, but up until that point, and in Iraq and Afghanistan, you can't, you can't just running around laying down machine gun fire. Somebody has to demonstrate a hostile act or hostile intent first. But once you're fired upon, you have the inherent right to self-defense. That's exactly as it's written. You always have the inherent right to self-defense. It's a complicated world. And so in my job, that's why maybe it makes a little more sense now why I was required to scale of battle box to EDC club. How excited are you for the release of Top Gun 2? Shit hits the fan. That's how excited I am for Top Gun 2. Shit hits the fan box. Yeah. Yeah. Not at all. No. So anyway, if somehow we had to get in a fight in a shooting war with Russia, number one, I am going to be pissed off that I missed it. I mean, that's frankly, I mean, that's what we have trained for forever. It's like, I will feel like I missed the big game. That's like a major league pitcher playing with his team all season and then retiring right before they made the World Series, in a very, I know that's an odd way to look for it. No, Craig, it cannot. That's not what it does. No. It cannot. It just, the ASA radar is just a much better radar platform with a faster refresh rate. It's not an offensive weapon. It's a sensor. It's an information gatherer. And it also, target designator. It's a much better system than a mechanically scanned radar because it can do so many things so much faster, and it's harder to jam because there is no one antenna to focus on jamming. But if we had to fight with Russia, we would win. We would, unless of course it went full nuclear and then nobody wins. But we would win. But we would get beaten up badly. Yeah, the ASA radar, that's not what an ASA radar does. I mean, radars can fry things by accident, but you don't use them as offensive weapons. Maybe they were talking about, I don't know what they were, I'd have to see what they were talking about, but that's not what an ASA radar is for. That's not how it works. If you put a radar right next to another radar, you could fry out its antenna, like just from the sheer power, but it's not how you use them. Blade jockey, I'd have to look at what it is. I mean, I don't know what it is that everyone's posting. Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about, hang on. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about CRAMs and the phalanx. You are talking about R2D2. Let me share my screen. I believe you were talking about this guy right here, and there are different versions of it. So this is a radar on top, and what it does is, this is the 30 millimeter version, or sorry, the 20 millimeter version that is mounted on ships. They have 30 millimeter, they have 20 millimeter, and so this was originally mounted on ships to protect from cruise missiles. They also have smaller versions that we use to protect against mortars and rockets on the ground, called CRAMs. So this is a radar with two different antennas, one that tracks the incoming target and one that tracks the spray of the bullets. And it adjusts the angle and the direction of the gun until the two radar tracks meet. And so it shoots at between 4,000 and 6,000 rounds per minute. And it's a pretty cool gun. We call them R2D2 because of the shape. Is that what you're talking about, Blade Jockey? Or you're talking about something else? Because I think that's, yeah. Those are very good. They are, you know what, in Iraq, they missed more than half the time. We were protected by them on the ground in Iraq. And the problem is, when there were multiple incoming rounds, it has trouble deciding which one to shoot. And, well, I don't know, that was a while ago. But when it's like got a large target like a cruise missile, it's pretty accurate. When it's shooting little things like little shoulder fired rockets, they have, or mortars, they have a little trouble. They're a 20 millimeter cannon, same as what aircraft shoot. I mean, they blow the thing up. They shred the thing is what they do. And sometimes they set off the explosive in the target that they're hitting, and sometimes they don't. But yeah, it looks like a red laser beam shooting out of it at night. And it's pretty cool to watch. Not like when you're under mortar attack and you know it's live mortars coming, but when they test fire them once a week, it's kind of cool to watch. But I mean, yeah, when you're shooting 6,000 rounds a minute at anything, it's pretty powerful. It's pretty cool. And so they got the idea from the naval ship ones, and then scaled it down to put them on like flatbeds, and so there's the Army version. The CRAMs has 3 associated radar. The radars are separate, and so on the gun, it just has one radar that's tracking the rounds, and then it has 3 other radars that are tracking the incoming. And it's basically based on the same thing, but it's a little bit different. And then they get a higher resolution though, because on the target, because they're dealing with smaller targets. The Navy one has been tested to be very, very accurate, but again, it's shooting at a single larger target, that is probably able to be picked up much farther out than a small mortar. They have much more time to intercept it. So I don't know. But boy, when you're, the mortar alarm, the red alert alarm goes off, and you hear the incoming alarm go, and then you hear that, like you know exactly what that thing is. You hear that. That's how you like. So a lot of times in Iraq, we never heard them in Afghanistan. I'm sure they had them. We never heard them go off in Afghanistan. But you got more scared when you heard them go off in Iraq, because that meant that you knew that it was not a false alarm. Like, you knew shit was falling on your head, because you actually heard them shooting at it. And the funny thing also in Iraq was that, more often than not, you heard the boom of the first round hitting before you heard the alarm go off. So, like, what is hey, air defense guys, need you to step up your game a little bit. But in all fairness, I mean, these guys would take pot shots from all around the perimeter, and it's the nature of the game. So yeah. So my big fear about Russia and Ukraine is that it could literally spark a World War III. And I have had my fill of young Americans in body bags at this point in my life. I really have. We don't need any more, especially over something that has nothing to do with us right now. But then again, I say that, and then I think, well, that's exactly what everybody said about Germany basically just taking over Czechoslovakia. And we're like, well, it has nothing to do with us. Just let them have it. And look where that led to. So I don't know. It was, Putin is, Putin. And I think the worst thing about him is he's unpredictable. He could act very rational and sensible on Monday, and then Tuesday, it all goes out the window. I don't think China's going to invade Taiwan because of that. I think if China wanted to invade Taiwan, they would have done it already. I don't think China is going to invade Taiwan because it's not. Hey, Jason, it's not about whether or not we use troops. The worst thing that would happen if China invaded Taiwan would be economic. Listen, we buy a lot of shit from China, and the last thing they want is for, fighting American troops would be one thing, but for Biden to start economic sanctions, that would be way worse for China than fighting our troops over a shitty little island. That is a political thing. So I don't know. How long do you think it would take for us to get involved? How long would it take for us to get involved? I have no idea, Blade. Honestly, Blade Jockey, I couldn't even go out on that limb. I think I don't think it would be the invasion of Ukraine specifically. I think it would be a twitchy neighbor of Ukraine who's a member of NATO, one of them getting involved, and then invoking Article 8, and then we'd have to. I know that Germany buys a lot of gas from Russia, so they're not crazy about a lot of natural gas, so they're not crazy about going to war against Russia. But we've incorporated all these little countries that used to be right on the periphery of the Soviet Union into NATO now. So all these little countries along the Baltic, and they're right up against Ukraine, could get really twitchy really quick. And all it takes is one of them to somehow get sucked into this and then invoke Article 8 of the NATO treaty, and then we all got to go. And that, little history lesson, that's how NATO ended up in Afghanistan, because the United States is the only country thus far in the NATO alliance to invoke the attack on one as an attack on all. And so we had NATO. That's why NATO was in Afghanistan and not Iraq. It's just I don't know. I know that no good can come of it, and it's not going to be a thing that I am happy about. I personally probably will end up not being called back to duty, per se, but I think I'll end up being called as like a contractor to do some teaching, some weapon systems familiarization and instruction, because we have a pre-deployment kind of facility at Fort Dix / McGuire, whatever they're calling it here, and I'm like right there. So yeah, I don't know. But I've kind of been it's been talked to me that they might want me to like do some of that kind of stuff in the pre-deployment course that they have there. Oh, you know what? Article 5 is the mutual defense clause. I might have been wrong about Article 8. Yeah. What is Article 8? Let me look. Yeah, I was wrong. It's Article 5. Craig is correct. Article 5 is the one. The parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all. If such an armed attack occurs, each of them in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. End of the world. That's how that paragraph should end. How's PETA? PETA is just being a kitty. PETA is just being a good kitty cat. Are worst fear contractors or advisor? Are you talking about what do you mean? Are worst fear contractors or advisor? What do you mean? I have a friend who my best military friend. Like me and him go way back when I was going through the PJ thing and he was going through the SEER instructor thing. And he did 2 tours in Iraq as an air advisor to the Iraqi Air Force, and he hated every minute of it. I don't think I would have enjoyed being an air advisor. He was there on the base at, I forgot what base, was it Baghdad? It was Baghdad, I think, when an Iraqi major pulled the old shooting the AK at everybody in the room. And why was Ukraine never admitted? Ukraine never really wanted to be. It was Ukraine. We knew that it would just trigger the shit out of Russia if Ukraine joined NATO. And it was always that political hot potato that to put a country, think about you go as a contractor, be advisor to what NATO be. Oh, no, I would never. I mean, so I would never want to be a contractor overseas. Okay, so short little story time. When I got out of the Air Force, I got offered a job by Northrop Grumman, like before I even got out. And if you guys have never heard of a cool plane called Bacon, the BACN, the Battlefield Airborne Command Node, they wanted me to jump right in on that. But it would have meant going to Afghanistan again a lot. And I was like, yeah, the pay is good. The pay was like 180 something a year. But I was like, I am not like I think it was like 3 months on, 3 months off. And I'm not spending every 3 months in Afghanistan. No, thank you. Not doing it. So the contractor life for me is not cool. I wouldn't want to be an advisor either, because, like I said, my friend just said it sucked. I wouldn't want to do either of those. Not at all. But by the way, Jason, thank you. I appreciate that. And we've got giveaways for both Patreon and the main channel going on. So that's where that's going, right to shipping. $8 million, huh? I'm glad. Bet he's glad he's here, not there. Yeah. So this is just going to be a thing. Another thing I worry about, and this is just side note, if it does come to a war that we're involved with Russia, even without nukes, so then is it going to end up in a World War II style or Red Storm Rising style battle to close the Atlantic, to cut off supplies? Because our shipping situation and our supply in the country situation is bad enough without Russian submarines trying to sink ships. That sucks. Anyway, all right. So we're at our hour. I'm glad we got some questions asked. And Mr. Thunder Cunt Mountain talking about stolen valor, that was fun. But yeah, if you guys, again, I keep getting these emails about military stuff. I don't mind answering them at all. If you guys want to ask me some questions, I'll do my best to answer them as I can. Feel free. But thanks for enjoying and taking part in the chat. I'm going to go eat some food because I've been drinking this this delicious mix of voltage and coconut rum this whole time. My nerves are a little on edge with this stuff, guys. I'm not going to lie. So thanks, everybody that participated. We've got project videos on the way. We've got some reviews of some cool knives from Axis. This Civivi Cogent with the Damascus blade, some project stuff. Probably we're going to see results for the giveaway for this guy, the Cursed Blade. I like that we're calling it the Cursed Blade. Saturday or Sunday, because the contest ends Friday, and then I can tally it all up. So as always, remember, guys, just keep positive about this, and they can't draft you if you enlist first. Haha, jokes on them. Anyway, you guys are awesome. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be back again real soon.